Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is The Amateur, where we're here to talk life, politics, hobbies, ideologies, what have you. And on today's episode, we're talking white privilege. So buckle in. And there'll be a TikTok video that I'm kind of responding to because I made a comment on it and it was just so dumb. I can't stand people who say white privilege, but let's go into it. So we know words have meanings on their own, but we don't know what white is as a race. We don't. We simply don't. There's no definite understanding other than someone is not as melanated, but only to a certain point and only if your ancestry didn't come from Africa. From the Caucasus Mountains. But yeah, so we don't really know what white means in the racial context other than you're not black or a person of color. And then privilege, and I'll read some definitions of what privilege is from the Google. One is from a UCA privilege. What does it mean? So it's saying privilege comes from Latin privilegium, meaning a law for just one person, a benefit enjoyed by an individual or group beyond what is available to others. The first couple definitions off of Google will say a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group, something regarded as a special honor. And some of the synonyms is an immunity, an exception, or a advantage. Where to even begin there? So white privilege, let me see. So white privilege, from those two understandings of those words separately before I go into what a Google search might say, white privilege is the advantages of, I guess, societal benefits or advantages or special immunities from being the race that they are, which is white. So because they are white, that they are more advantaged than anyone else. I find fault with that. So Wikipedia, and there's some leeway with using Wikipedia, but Wikipedia says white privilege or white skin privilege is the societal privilege that benefits white people over non-white people in some societies, particularly if they are otherwise under the same social, political, or economic circumstances. So in order for that to work, at least according to its definition, you would have to literally hold everything else the same other than the skin color alone, or whatever it actually means to be white. We still don't really know, in order for someone to benefit from white privilege. Does that make any sense? And we can't do that. We literally can't do that. We can't hold every other factor available to us constant in order to come to a conclusion that it was because of their whiteness that they benefited. You know what I mean? So again, this is the issue of drawing conclusional or making conclusions from correlational data instead of so correlation does not equal causation. Just because someone's white doesn't mean that it's because of that. And there is a web of race within the states as far as with the relations. So it's I kind of understand what they're trying to say with things like white privilege, but it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. There's no singular holding everything constant. There's nothing that a white person has that is beneficial over me, except for maybe, I don't freaking know, they get more vitamin D from the sun than I do, and that's like a physical thing because that's what melanin does. But you know what I'm trying to say? So hopefully that made sense. I need to do better at organizing my thoughts. I swear they're really good sometimes. I'd be on it in the comments, but when it comes to making videos, I'm everywhere. We'll work on that. I'm an amateur. We'll work on that. But okay, so this being established and kind of somewhat defined, then there's a TikTok video. So let me just go ahead and show that real quick. I changed my mind. I'm just gonna do an on-screen reaction because he said it's a almost 3-minute TikTok, so it's a little bit too much for me to try to show the video then break everything out. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get started.
I wrote a new book called Filled to be Emptied, The Path of Liberation for Privileged People, and it's intended for white Christians and Christians in general to explore and examine what it means to have privilege and how the example of Jesus challenges us to use our privilege for the good of others.
Pause. So just kind of a little bit of background. This guy, Brandon Robertson, he calls himself a reverend of what? I don't know. He calls himself a progressive Christian, which you'll go back to my videos on division, especially what did I say, a call to unity for Christians, because division is a work of the flesh. Okay, 1. So that's 1. 2, there's only one way to be a Christian. Okay, and it's definitely not progressive, because the whole principle of God is that he's constant, stable, eternal. Anything he says is law, and it doesn't change. So that's something that we do know. It's like whatever God says is true, and that it's going to stay the same. So if you're progressing something, then you're not staying stable. So by definition, whatever progressive Christianity is, it's not Christianity. And call me a gatekeeper or whatever. I mean, call me out if I'm wrong. But we have to be able to reject things that don't hold true to what is true. That makes sense. But anyway, so he's a reverend or a progressive Christian. You made a book, okay, so white Christian to Christian. From the jump, when you're separating people by white versus non-white, that's already an issue, because we should just be Christians. Then, like, the Bible literally has nothing, like, says nothing about race. It might say something about the Gentiles and the whatever, which is a statement of the area, of the nationality, of the culture, but it's not a statement of race. So Bible doesn't say anything about race. Race, okay, like as you said in my last video, race didn't start even being a word until the 1600s, or the 1500s, 15th century, 1600s, okay? We heard that. So everything about race is about 500 years old. I can't math right now. About 500 years old, okay? So not as old as the Bible and the people of the Bible and those that lived through the Bible, okay? So that's one thing, but we'll continue. Oh, and then my other issue is Jesus gives us privileges, and at this point, I'm like really confused if he's trying to equate privileges to blessings, which is kind of important. It's kind of important to understand that distinction. Let me see if there's a definition of said word, blessing. What is a blessing? A blessing, in my understanding, is a gift from God. A gift from God. I stay blessed. Okay, so Google defines a blessing as God's favor and protection. A prayer asking for God's favor and protection. Grace said before, after me. Oh, well. Okay, so God's favor and protection, I feel like that's pretty accurate. I don't know what the Bible says about. Let me see if there's a biblical definition. Sorry, let me pause. And so another source says that a blessing is a favor or gift bestowed by God, thereby bringing happiness. Is a blessing considered a privilege or an advantage? I mean, there's an argument to make that case, but I don't know how well that would stand. So yeah, so that's kind of like it kind of sounds like he's saying blessings are a privilege. I mean, it depends on how you define it. Like, blessing isn't a privilege in anything political or government wise, but I don't know. I know that I'm hella heavenly blessed. I'm very much blessed in my life, so I don't know. I think I've been privileged. I've been blessed by God for sure. So I don't know if I can hate that entirely, but it's very shady business. shady business. But continuing. Ah!
At the end of this book, I make a challenge to the reader, and I want to extend that challenge to you as well. This is what I write in the final chapter called From Insurrection to Resurrection. Christianity today has become one of the most powerful tools to promote racism.
False. Oh, false. That's fake news. Okay, Christianity, again, so it's about actually understanding what Christianity is. And if there's a belief system that's promoting racism, that's not Christianity. And if you say that it is, you're wrong. Because that's, like, again, there's nothing, literally nothing in the Bible that says to think that a race, again, whatever that actually means, because it's nothing that God created as far as defining as something. Like, God defined man and woman. He said that there's a male and a female, and there's different purposes for that. That's a biology thing, and that's a God thing. He never said anything about race, because we all came from one couple, so it doesn't matter. But to say that Christianity promotes racism is just not biblical and not founded on anything. And if you are, questioning the faith or atheist or whatever, I don't know how many of y'all are watching this, but feel free to provide some feedback in the comments as far as to where I'm wrong. I'm not, but you can try.
Sexism, homophobia, transphobia, Christian supremacy, and so much more.
So Christian belief promoting Christian supremacy. It just depends on what you mean by that, because yeah, I mean, yes, Christian supremacy, like it's not Christian supremacy, it's God supremacy. You got to be able to understand, like, at least to be true to the faith, and understanding the roots. Like, I think I explained it in one of these past videos I had to have, but it's like me not killing somebody and me not going out and stealing somebody, that doesn't make me good. It was already a good thing because God told us not to do that, and by not doing that, it's like following God. So, like, anything that I'm obedient to of God is nothing to do with me and everything to do with what God says. And that's like the whole Christian belief. So it's like you have to be able to separate yourself from the belief system. Again, it's like 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 because I just said it was. 2 + 2 is 4 because that's what we observed, and that's just what it is. So God just is, and I've adopted his system of what is because it just is. I'm not making much sense. I know it. Continue.
Christianity bears almost no resemblance to the Christ that it claims to worship. If our world is going to experience the resurrection we long for, it must begin with followers of Jesus being willing to abandon Christianity for the sake of following Jesus. Many are happy to sing songs.
So again, it's like abandoning Christianity, for the sake of following Jesus. I think what he's trying to say is to get rid of I don't know if this is what he's trying to say. This is what I'm interpreting. So I will agree if it's something where he's saying these religious practices, like you have to pray before every meal, or you have to raise your hands when you worship, or you have to go to church every single Sunday, or you're not a Christian. Like, those things aren't biblically based, and there's not what makes any Christian a Christian. And so if we're going to talk about that, that's another section, but Christianity at its basis is following Christ. So if you have another definition of Christianity, that it's not Christianity. Okay? Like, words matter. Gosh darn it. Okay, continuing.
Of praise to Jesus. Many desire the benefits of being a Christian in our society, but very few are ready to do the will of God, which is a prerequisite to entering the kingdom according to Jesus.
The benefits of being a Christian in this society, I mean, there might have been at some point because it was a Christian society, and so it would help if you fundamentally believe the same things as everybody else that follows society. But now it's like Christianity is always the butt of some joke, always crucified for something And it's for those people who claim Christianity but aren't actually Christian, which is a problem. And I talk about this in another video if you want to go watch that. But yeah.
This passage from Matthew 7:21 isn't primarily about salvation beyond the grave, but rather those who enter into the kingdom in this world here and now because they have actively chosen to live in the pattern of self-emptying that Jesus embodied. If you want to experience resurrection, you have to live it. If you want to overcome the forces of insurrection, you must live in the pattern of resurrection, which requires dying to the pursuit of privilege and power and giving birth to a new way of living in our world.
I don't really know what he's trying to say here. I don't know what he's trying to say here. I think there needs to be a understanding of Christianity is about humbling yourself. Because that's the whole point of going through repentance and to say, hey, I've wronged the ultimate good with my sin. Please forgive me, and I'm accepting your gift that you've given me of the salvation. But none of that, it's difficult to explain. There's nothing that we can do. How do I say this right? Again, so I will say this. So again, praying more, cursing less, drinking in moderation, that doesn't necessarily make someone good. Like I said before, those actions were already good because God says that it's a good thing to do. But also understand, doesn't make anyone a better person. It doesn't, like, if I were to pray every single day and meditate on the Bible, that doesn't make me a better person. It just makes me more in tune with what God says. And so it doesn't like, on a scale of the best Christian versus the worst Christian, it's like those are inconsequential. It's not that it's inconsequential, because like these things matter, but not in the way that he's trying to make it seem on like a personal level. I'm not articulating this very well. I'm probably going to make another video or something on this, but I get what he's trying to say, but it's still not biblically accurate.
This is a moment of reckoning. Whoever you are, wherever you might be in the world, whatever your political or theological bent, you are being asked to choose. Will we follow the path of empire, the path of privilege, the path of exploitation? Or will we follow the path that calls us to come and die, to give birth to a new way of living, a new kind of being, not just for us, but for all of creation? This is not a choice any of us can make lightly, but the consequences of this choice have rarely stood out so clearly as they do in our era. The planet is crying out. Oppressed peoples are raising their voices, and the privileged and powerful are raging. The time has come for followers of Jesus to begin following in a bold, prophetic, and costly way. It is my sincere hope and prayer that each of us will awaken to the Spirit's call and respond with a brave and faithful commitment to living in the way of Jesus. May it be. To find out more information about this book, you can go to Amazon or Google. Just Google Filled to be Emptied by Brandon Robertson. I hope you'll check out this resource, and I hope we can continue to have these important conversations for the sake of the church and for the...
Okay, so again, his intention is noble, but it's not, his framing is off, if that makes sense. So it's like you
that you
the Christian belief, you have to understand that whatever God says, whatever God ordains is good, because God is good. That's in his nature. He can only command things that are good. And then also understanding that by obedience to the things that is good because it is goodness in itself. And so to say to give up, I don't really know. He's trying to say give up privileges that aren't blessings, but blessings are a privilege. It don't sit right with me. I'll have to think about how to articulate this better. But all that I know is that God's good. God gives blessings that are good, and those blessings may put you at a privileged spot or an advantageous spot. But I don't know if this is a Bible verse, but I know it's like we are blessed to be a blessing as well. So it's like it's supposed to be a gift that keeps on giving, something like that. But yeah, so anyway, the whole point of this super long video was just say that white privilege is a myth, or if you're going to ignore literally everything else about why someone might be advantageous in a situation and say that it's just skin alone, you might miss out on more of the actual situation, which is again culture, belief systems, how a person has been raised, their economic status, where they live, like all those things are factors. And if you just say white privileged and better than and good, like you've already lost the argument because you're making a hierarchical claim that it's unfounded. So, but what do I know? I'm just an amateur. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.